Hi. Hi.
Hi guys. We've got two really amazing individuals from the world of Star Wars and building joining us today. Chris, firstly, is a fantastic artist and illustrator. 17 years experience working on official Star Wars projects, Chris?
It's closer to 25 now.
25? You started when you were 12.
It's been a while.
So working on Haynes manuals and William Falcon owners and all sorts of stuff, yeah. But I'm also a great oracle of knowledge when it comes to Star Wars and particularly R2-D2.
Yeah.
A very, very detailed individual. And Tim, the other thing, Tim's a really amazing builder. I know many of us do fantastic work with our creations for children and charities and good causes, but I think Tim is probably the best example I've seen of the positive effect of the hobbies can have on people. Not only one of the most prolific and fastest builders that I've seen, also building some crazy large things. His creations are fantastic, but he also does some outstanding work for good causes. And I think, Tim, you're also happy to share some of your personal experiences of how building has helped you get through some tough times and built up resilience.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
So it should be a very, very interesting session. But firstly, Tim, I don't know if you could take us around your space just before we joined we started to broadcast. Tim took us around his
absolutely.
Space. So yeah, just take us a little bit of a guided tour around. Carry the
I can do that. Give me 1 second. I'll give you a quick walk around.
Look.
All right, so of course, here are some of my builds. You got Chris. I didn't build him, of course. A7, BB-8, working on IG-11, R2, C-3PO, of course. I do have a Mando. You'll see the Mando rifle on the wall. And it's actually functional, so you can actually load a magazine, make some sound. And then walking around the corner here, my very first project was this guy. Was Iron Man. I took him on, and this is where I make a lot of the magic happen. As a matter of fact, what you see right now is a lightweight PLA Mr. Badley DO head in the process, and then in here some raw stocks, fantastic printers. I primarily use Deltas for just about everything that I do. This is the Boss, the raw stock. And then, of course, the Form Lab for some of those highly detailed parts that I try to do as well. And then get you around the bar here. and in the back corner over here is this was my second build. This was War Machine, and this guy he's pretty neat. He was functional in the sense that it was my real limit on tested my limit on electronics, where I first got introduced to some Arduino.
Mm-hmm.
The challenge was I worked with a friend of mine. His name was Tyler, and with that, the armor actually was voice activated. So
okay.
The gun would rise over my shoulder when I would say shoulder, and it would rise over. And I would say fire, and it would fire, or I would say hit it, and it would play AC/DC. But the problem with that was whenever I was at an event, and there was a lot of secondary noise, it would say hit it, and then all of a sudden AC/DC goes blasting off in the suit, and I had no control. I couldn't stop it. It was a learning curve for me, but a nice learning curve with in the Arduino world. So, but that's it in a nutshell. Each one grew. I learned from one build to another. Every time I did it, I learned something new. With Iron Man, started with my son one year, and this is when it all started. We have a small family gathering, Halloween party every year. I looked at him and I said, I'm going to do Iron Man. And I saw the look on his face, and it just really, really hit me about the expression, like you're going to actually do Iron Man. Didn't know how I was going to do it. There was all kinds of different things. There was Epicura and foam, different ways to make it. And then I started reading about 3D printing. And I jumped into the really small one. I don't know if you remember the Robo R1 printer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my first one. And build volume was very big, but some super glue and some fiberglass, everything just started coming together.
No, it's incredible. Anyway, before we jump into personal stories, I mean, firstly, how did you two meet? What's the background?
Anthony, actually, at the Anthony Daniels book signing.
Okay.
When he was traveling, I met Chris there, and he heard I was bringing C3PO down, that I was going to suit up, and he had his amazing R2. And I had built mine, of course. I call his the Rolls Royce, and mine, in comparison, the Kia.
Right.
But I mean, no offense, it's amazing 3D print, but 280 pounds of solid aluminum. It's mind blowing. So from there, it was kind of funny. It was about a week later, Chris hits me up and said, "Hey," or his friend Kevin asked me. He said, "Hey, you want to do a funeral?" A C3PO, and I looked at him. I said, "What?
A funeral?"
A funeral, yeah.
A funeral. And I was
memorial service.
Yeah, memorial service. I had no idea what it was about. And he explained to me that, where we're from, Kenner Toys, was all the Star Wars toys that we enjoyed as a kid were made in Cincinnati, in Kenner. And so this guy was the guy that designed the actual packaging of all the Star Wars toys that we played with. And I said, how could you say no to that? He's a part of my childhood. And so I did it. It was a pretty neat experience. There were some legends there at the memorial service. I had a guy actually, while I was in the suit, he came up to me and looked at R2, and probably 70-year-old.
Yeah.
Yeah. Taps me on the chest and he goes, "I made you." And then he looks at R2 and he goes, "I made you too." And it just, wow, this is the guy that designed and made the actual C3PO toy that,
Oh,
so
wow.
These guys are getting older, but it's been a major part of their life, so it was an honor. And then from there, Chris and I started doing some events together. We did robotics.
Lego robot thing.
Yeah, we've done a couple
other stuff.
veteran stuff, so it just really worked out really well.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. And you're quite close to each other, about 30 minutes away?
About an hour.
That's all my today. And then I ended up taking an hour plus to get here. So.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, we're under ideal circumstances, 45 minutes to an hour away from each other.
Well, the roads are fairly clear at the moment, I guess, as everybody's on shutdown. So.
Yeah. I saw a lot of red and blue lights on my way up here.
So,
there's something going on.
Yeah, I saw them too. The cops were all over.
Well, not following me.
If you do get into full lockdown, it's not a bad place to be locked down in there, I guess. You've got a bar and you've got Star Wars stuff, so it's all cool.
Yeah, that's true.
So, anyway, a question for both of you, I guess. Why Star Wars? I mean, what drew you into this? Where did it all start? What was mad into this mad universe, Chris?
Oh man, well, there just never was not Star Wars for me. And growing up with it, and it was just part of everything I was doing as a kid. And then I was at the right age for when the Zahn books hit and came back out and kind of re-released toys. Like I was right in the heart of all of it as the target audience, and then ended up working at a small toy consultancy, product development consultancy in town. And the guys I worked for were the guys who did the original Star Wars toys, designers that worked on them. So,
well, the Kenner ones.
Yeah, they had left Kenner and formed their own small consultancy. So I worked there for a decade before going off on my own. But worked on Star Wars stuff back then. Little Riddell mini helmets were the first project I worked on. So like half scale replicas of the Star Wars helmets. But got to know a lot of people at Lucasfilm, and it's been that for the past quarter of a century for me.
So is it because it can work, or do you still enjoy the movies?
I still love it. Yeah. It's the best thing about it is that I enjoy getting up and playing in the universe every day. So it's a Sunday, but I was off working on Star Wars stuff this morning for a project. So
Yeah, I know the feeling. And Tim, what about you? What drew you into Star Wars?
Oh, it's just, I've always been a fan as a kid. I had all the toys, the Millennium Falcon, and it's just been a part of my life. Obviously my favorite was C-3PO, growing up and having that little toy in my hand. And I don't know, it's just always been a part of my life. And, I have a 10-year-old now. And, I enjoy Marvel and some of the other stuff. But, by far, Star Wars has always trumped that. I tried to get my son into Marvel. It's not happening. He just absolutely loves Star Wars. So it's nice. It's nice because you share from generation to generation too. Never gets. You can watch it over and over and over. I could pop the same movie in over and over and never get tired. I just love it. Absolutely, the story, the characters, and the creations. Obviously, that's kind of taken off building all this because it's never ending. Just so many different things.
To the point where you need a bigger cellar now, I think.
Yeah, I'm running out of room down here. I need a museum to open up at some point.
So Tim, we'll start a little bit digging into your background. I know we spoke briefly about building, but specifically, I know one of the things that you wanted to talk about was how it helped resilience and the military experiences.
Sure. Yeah. As you know, I think I sent you some photos. I did 21 and a half years in the military. Started out, I did the first round when September 11th happened. I had been in Air Force Special Operations and had gone forward. And I was with the same group of guys that did the initial on the ground type stuff in Afghanistan. Came back, and then I really missed that, and I ended up going back to Iraq. And I was embedded with the British, so it was a really great experience. The Royal Dragoons, and I guess the Brits call it, the timeline was Op Telek 10 and 11 in Basra. And about 6 months into that, I hit a roadside bomb and suffered a traumatic brain injury, some torn ligaments, internal bleeding. And then eventually I ended up getting medically separated from the military. And your sense of purpose kind of goes, what is my purpose anymore? And didn't know. And I needed something to escape. Just like when we build this stuff, I think it's kind of an escape for all of us. And, it really, I do a lot of public speaking on this about resiliency and finding a passion. And this has been what I found out I can do. And not only that, it just the reward to be able to put a smile on a child's face after you finish, building something like R2D2 or BB-8 or showing up in C-3PO. The reward is not only to the individual, but to them as well. It's just amazing. But I really enjoyed serving with them. I have a few friends in the UK still that I still keep in touch with that I served with over there. And as a matter of fact, two of us are going to be hiking the West Highland Way here in August. We're going to do about a 100-mile hike for PTSD and suicide awareness. So
okay, yeah.
5 days of the West Highland Way. So, we'll see how it goes. So I need to get going and start working out because I got a feeling it's a long walk. So yeah, I'm going to be hurting.
A fair bit of work, yeah.
You've got some good whiskey that will help with that. So some Scottish whiskey.
So, buildings clearly a need and a passion then, Tim. What
Yes.
are your most challenging or rewarding creations? What are you most proud? I mean, I guess it's always the latest one, but what's the one that stands out?
The one, BB-8, I think really pushed me to my limit. The drive system and I went with Joe's drive, and I have Kerry Christie's skeleton that I used for BB-8, and it's still, I'm still learning. It's got its issues, but he seems to be pretty good for the most part. Yeah, definitely that one pushed me to my limit. R2 helped me. I'll tell you that much. Your R2 is fantastic, amazing build, and really taught me a lot. Just in general, with the electronics and the design itself is amazing. So kudos to you. I mean, none of us, between DO and R2 in here, it's what you do is amazing. How do you come up with some mechanics? Now that's a skill set that I wish I had more of, and I want to build upon. I can't. Guys like Chris here, fantastic. CAD. As a matter of fact, when we're done here, I'm having him help me with some modifications to some of the CAD design in BB-8, so I can fix some shims.
Well, that's the beauty of the community, really, because you've got a real mix of skills. You've got guys that design, you've got guys that code, you've got people that do electronics, you've got artists that paint. Effectively, it probably mirrors what goes on movie sets in the background, but actually it's a community that's sharing skills. And to me, that's what makes it really, really special, to be honest.
One of the ones that really pushed me to my limit, I'm really bummed I never got finished it, was I started working on the animatronic Baby Yoda back in December time frame. I put out the idea that, hey, I'm going to make a mold with print. So instead of printing the head itself, I ended up printing the mold. And I attempted to do it. It was successful, except the fact that I struggled with the fact that, hey, you have to have the skull within the skin of the body.
Yeah.
And so I had to design that, and I still got some work to do. I haven't given up. I'm not going to let it defeat me, so I'm going to go back and try it again. Because I saw the amazing one that Grant just did, and he did exactly, it killed me. When I saw it, I was like, that's what I wanted to do. I was trying so hard.
He nailed it. He absolutely nailed it.
He sure did. I mean, he did exactly what I wanted to do. So even the mold, I saw that he did the same thing. He used the same concept of printing. Instead of making a mold, he printed the mold, just like I was trying to do. So kudos to him. It was great, fantastic job.
It's amazing. And so a bit background from you, Chris. I've got to say, I love your work. I've got a signed print, and they haven't put this up. This is always on every interview, and it's quite exciting to get you on there. So you mentioned briefly about how you started in the world of Star Wars, but give us a little bit more in depth into that whole. How did it start? Did you stumble across a career, or did you plan it?
Stumbled across a career. I think that's usually how it happens. I was going to school for illustration, created an illustration program and did graphic design and painting. And then coming out of school, I had gone on a European trip with a couple of professors and a bunch of other friends from school. And it was kind of the last couple credit hour trip, but a way to wind things down. Talked with one of the professors on that trip, and when we got back, they did their family Thanksgiving, and his brother was one of the partners in the company I ended up working for. So they got talking about me and that I could draw, went down and interviewed, and it was 5 days later I started working for them. And then it was 10 years later that I left. So I kind of fell into that one. But and since then it's a lot of work. But doing the freelance thing, illustration and product development, and then, as you know, doing all I decided I wanted to do an R2 build of my own, but I wasn't happy with the club plans at the time. Thought they could be improved. So went back through and re-examined everything, redid the plans for the club, and now the club has the CSR plans. And part of that push was to to get plans and a system where people could make iterations and revisions as they needed, and a way to track that. I don't know if anybody's really taken advantage of that yet. I mean, there are changes that I know need to happen, and stuff with the rear skins and whatnot that were mistakes just from how fast we were working on stuff. But I mean, I love that sort of thing, the cooperative iteration of stuff and just diving into the details. I mean, but I would say like the other big moment and turn for me, Star Wars wise and work wise, was when I really started doing illustration stuff more hardcore. Because I've been kind of splitting my time between illustration and product development, doing toys and other things, collectibles and whatnot. But then Chris Trevis, my illustration partner, called up, and there was a big project that we were going to team up on, and it was this blueprint sets from DK. So they're big fold-out blueprint posters, and we dove into that stuff together, kind of tag team them all the way through, and that blueprint style and kind of that super techie craziness is kind of what's monopolized a lot of time since then. So everything from packaging art for Hasbro to the books for Haynes and all sorts of craziness. So
you've got the blueprints to everything then?
If not on paper, in my head, yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, even before I was working on Star Wars, Travis and we started a website called The Parts of Star Wars.
Yeah.
And that was because we were both super fans and into all the props and kind of the detail stuff. And he and I started that site, and I think we formalized the site in '97, but we were working on stuff well before that. And it was just a way for us to track knowledge that he and I had about the bits and bobs that go into the Star Wars props. And then that kind of snowballed, and now we just do it on Facebook. But it's one of those things where like the closet at home is just filled with parts, the same kind of parts that they use to make original props, whether it's Sterling machine guns or pieces out of old switches and
should have brought
goggles. I should have.
Yeah.
But so like that's sort of like crazy, like staring at grainy photos and just kind of re-examining things and looking for hidden little clues in props and learning how to look at things that they're not objects that you would expect them to be. It's like finding a dryer on the axe kind of stuff, where it feels like what was that magazine, Highlights? I don't know if you guys had Highlights over there or not, but it was a kids magazine, and it was one of the features in the magazine was this big drawing, and it was, I don't know, like picture a rainforest. And then there were little pictures along the side, like a toothbrush and a pencil and a notepad and a computer.
Yeah.
And you had to where those things were buried in the larger photo. And the Parts of Star Wars thing kind of tickles that itch for me in some ways. Like looking at Princess Leia's comlink on her wrist and realizing it's a tape measure, and then half of a tape measure, and then going and finding the exact tape measure from 1980.
Yeah, I was at his house. Let me show you real quick. We were working on. Let's see if I can bring it up. We were working on a 3D model of IG.
Oh wow!
And he happened to have the real tube at his house, a real engine tube. So we ended up getting all the measurements, and he was whipping it out in CAD. And then I'm looking like, how am I going to print these? And he's like, oh, no, those are actually this little thing from electrical connector. So, yeah, we...
Amazing. When you're trying to replicate exactly what was in the movies at the time, the bit sometimes I struggle with is the perfectionist part of you wants to fix things. So you've got joins between the skins on the R2 down the middle, or you've got rivets, you've got screws, you've got brackets that are holding legs, you've got the hoses for Kenny Baker's legs. All of that as a designer, you can clean up but then you start to move away. So it's kind of, do you keep complete authenticity with all the bits hanging off and
Right.
slightly askew, or do you tidy it all up and make it nice and clean?
It's a constant struggle. I mean, R2 I built for myself was not a prop replica. I wanted it to look the way I thought it looked in my head, kind of how I saw R2. So a little idolized, but then also drawing inspiration from how R2 looked on the first day of filming. But the R2 that I built for myself, I wanted him to feel like a real, like, refined production good. So corners are square, and he's welded up, he's solid. Where the original was spot welded and riveted together, and panels were bent and sloppy, and I mean, it looked like something looks like something that came out of somebody's garage that had been neglected for 100 years. So I wanted an R2 that looked like a real, like, built in a factory sort of thing, and not a home built project.
Yeah, I always remember the photograph of R2 and C3PO where you kind of utility arms are white, and you've got one of the outer legs, ankles, that's holding his foot together in the middle. One of the is pushed in. And I mean, as a kid, I had an album which had that on the cover, and I didn't see any of it. And it's only when I started designing the thing, I was like, oh my god, they're not even painted me in blue. So. Yeah. Do you go for authenticity, or do you go for the reality?
And I love both directions, and eventually I will have a prop replica R2 built the same way they built the one from the movies, which is what I don't know if you've been following the Open R2 guys.
R2, yeah, Robert, yeah.
Yeah, that project, that's, like, I help out there when I can with the knowledge I've gotten and firsthand experience with the droids and stuff, but that's something that I would love to have is one that's just built the same way, doesn't work, and is kind of sloppy in all the right places.
That's the one thing I love about building Star Wars props, is the fact that if you mess up on the paint or dirt or whatever, it's like, you know what, I'll just leave it. Because that was George Lucas's thing. This is a dirty universe, and like, I was working on DO the other day, and I was painting something white and black, and it got the spots on there. I said, you know what? I'm just going to leave it.
Yep. Yeah. I printed the 1/6 DO on resin, and I've got no patience whatsoever. So I printed it. I sprayed it white. I'm blowing it with air from the airbrush to dry it, so I can put the next layer on. They're rushing through it, and there's bits of paint chipping off, and it doesn't matter.
Right. Love it. One thing a lot of people don't realize is the original props, like, we kind of idealize them in our heads, but the original props are held together with hot melt glue, super glue, wood screws. Yeah. And they're horrible. Some of the resin ones are just horrible castings that you would never accept as a product if you bought it from somebody on the RPF. Like, just some of them are just atrocious. And then other parts, like the original R2s from New Hope, pretty much everything on them is welded up sheet metal. Yeah. So the tiniest little details on there are metal. I mean, and welded, like the radar eye on them is welded up sheet metal. And to see the welds and how fine and tiny those things are with such thin material, it's amazing. But then you see stuff like the restraining bolt was held onto C-3PO's chest with a wood block on the backside and a wood screw through it. So, ouch. I mean, yeah, a little bit of room in there. It
hurts me just thinking about that.
So, Chris, 25 years. What's your key highlights or moments that you're most proud of?
Wow, that's a good one. There have been a lot. I mean, recent memory, the most fun stuff has been, I did that years and years ago too, but the most fun stuff, I would say, individual highlight is going to the archives at Skywalker Ranch and spending in there. I mean, it doesn't get a lot better than that. When you spend the week at the ranch, you wake up there on the ranch, and then walk over to another building or ride a bicycle over to another building and go into the archives. That's pretty special. There's so many other things. Just meeting fans when I take R2 out is some of the most fun stuff. And take them out, and there'll be plenty of times where I come home and my cheeks are sore from how much I've been smiling watching people interact with the droid. And that doesn't get old. I mean, you take R2 out, and you guys both know this. It's like everybody's a 10-year-old around R2. It doesn't matter how old they really are. I've had a lady who flew planes in World War II at an air show that I was driving R2 around at. She was there, and everybody wanted her autograph, wanted to talk to her about flying airplanes, and all she wanted the whole day was to get her photo with R2 underneath the B-20. So it's moments like that make it super special, and the connection with fans that way. So
we can't talk without leaving out your fabulous R2D2 build, Chris. Unique. Can you share a little bit more about that? Oh,
the R2?
Yeah.
He's all aluminum, and the big change we did on him, there were three of us that built them at the same time together, side by side. Myself, Darren Murr, and Cole Horton. And when we did that, we decided we wanted them basically tanks. So we could leave them alone, not worry about them bumping into things or getting dented or falling apart. And part of the way we did that is we made the skins out of a single layer of aluminum, machined all the panel lines and stuff in them, machined it flat, then rolled it and welded the seam down the side. And they each have a quarter-inch frame ring on the top and bottom, but the body can itself is kind of a unibody in a way. It's completely structural on its own. And knowing where to kick it is important, but you've seen me do it. I can kick my droid, and he's 270, 280 pounds, and I can push him across the floor kicking him so hard, and no problem.
If I kick mine, oh boy.
You don't kick 3D printed ones, I've got to say.
Yeah, I don't do them when other people are around, just other builders, because you don't want a kid to see that happen.
Yeah.
But
so the skin is actually part of the structure then, really?
It is, yeah.
Frame inside, or is it just?
I can separate the skin from the rest of it. And there's a photo of me on my Facebook page in the build photos doing this, where it was just the skin and the skirt, all like that big weld up, and sitting on the shop floor, and I was standing on it. I mean, it's completely structural.
Better yet, we were at the Robotics Lego League, and I walk into the room, and he's sitting on it with the remote in his hand, and he's driving it around the room with the dome off, sitting on the R2. I bet you can't do this with yours.
Well, I can do it on a 3D printed one. Yeah.
Can you? Yeah.
Yep. So back to you, Tim. I mean, you've got R2, you've got BB-8. I mean, you've got a Tauntaun. You've got everything really. And I know you actually use them at events and for great causes. But you must have some kind of highlights from some of those kind of events and where you've put those out.
Oh, there's so many. I think the best one I did was for it was down in Kentucky or Tennessee, East Tennessee. We did an event there for it was a cancer, children's cancer charity, and I tell you, these kids they came into the room. It was at a basketball game. I think there's a video. I have to share it with you. They made a video of it, and it was very much like a real Star Wars video with the intro and everything. And but the little kids that came in, they had the masks on their face, and the one guy was telling me that this is probably they were going to try to give them tickets to go to Disneyland, but some of those kids weren't going to make it to Disneyland, so that was their Disneyland. It was just it's just powerful. It really had an impact on me. That's something I just realized is that you turn one good into another good, and you find out, hey, I can build these things, and then you find out, hey, not only was that rewarding for me, but it's even more rewarding for that kid who's struggling, and the parents who are struggling. I'm a father of two, and I can't fathom what it's like to be a parent dealing with that. So, it's amazing.
No, I can well imagine. And I guess also you've met some people in your events. So Anthony, what's it like to rack up to Anthony Daniels in full costume?
Yeah, that was, what was funny is that was in Chicago Star Wars Celebration.
Yeah.
It was kind of funny how it worked out, because I was talking to his book manager, and they said, hey, Anthony, we can accommodate you. Anthony's going to be downstairs in about 45 minutes. And I had made a mad dash to get suited up. Ran down. I kind of only place close to that room. I thought he was coming down to the droid room in Celebration, so I hurried up and tried to get dressed. And then I found out that it was almost a 300-yard hike away in the suit. And I was already in the suit for a half hour, 45 minutes looking for him. And they said, no, Anthony's way down there. And I was like, oh my. So, and he was waiting for me to show up.
Really?
So okay. I ran it. He didn't come into the room until I did. And so I went in, and when I went into the room, people were looking like, is that him? What's going on here? So I'm standing in the corner for about 5 minutes, and all of a sudden I hear a roar. And there he was. He walked into the entrance, and he walked up, and he looked at me, and I think there was a video out there. He goes, he did the full I am C-3PO impersonation. He pointed at me, he goes, who's this guy? So it was a really cool opportunity, but so I didn't stick around because I saw there were so many fans in line. Went and suited down, and I came back, and there was still another couple hundred people. And so I never got a chance to talk to him, ask him how I did in the performance, because we kind of did it's like a little skit thing, And so I walked away, not knowing, talking to him and telling him, how much that meant to me. After building him and doing it. So it kind of really tore me up. And then I got this call, and somebody told me that he was going to be in Cincinnati at a bookstore for a book signing. And they said, hey, we heard you're a C-3PO performer. Could you come down? And I said, yeah, I'd love to. So, and then I'm also a member of the Rebel Legion, and here in Ohio, and the event came up, and I signed up for it. And before the event, I was pretty sure this time I wanted to talk to him, but I also wanted to thank him, and I made a little plaque that I gave him that had a coin. It was a Purple Heart coin, and it said on the plaque, it said, "Thank you for the motivation and inspiration." And I got to tell him what it meant to me, the build and being the character when I'm suited up in him, and it really touched him. And I think there's a picture he posted on his Instagram shortly after that. That it just meant a lot to have that opportunity, and to get, after all the hard work of building him, to hear what his thoughts were in the suit. And I wish I had more time with him. I would have picked his brain on a few more things. Yeah, that was the picture there.
Yeah.
But it was funny. The bookstore was like, "Hey, we'll go ahead and mail this to you." And Anthony took that plaque. He goes, "Absolutely not. This is coming with me." So I still wonder, is it hanging on his wall someplace in his house, or is he looking at it going, "Oh yeah, I remember that"? But it was the photograph in that plaque was the picture of him and I in Chicago. And I told him that was an opportunity. I never got a chance to tell you, what that really meant to me. So really great opportunity. Loved it.
Amazing story. And I think you're kind of in awe when you meet these kind of people, really, and surprised that they're very, very lovely and very supportive of what you do.
He seemed really interested in the fit and how.
He's felt the pain.
Yeah, he felt the pain. He came up to me and he's like, "Why would anybody come to a place like that and that?" You know.
Oh, he knows your pain. He knows.
Well, and that's the first thing I said to him. I did talk to him briefly before I suited up, and I said, "Anthony, I feel your pain." And he looked at me funny. I said, "I'm suiting up in about 15. I mean, I was going to suit up in about an hour or so." And he goes, "Oh!" So he knew right away, yeah, that I was going to suit up this 3PO.
And of course, you met the other legend that is Gordon, I guess.
Oh yeah, Gordon. Yeah, I met him briefly at Chicago, and we were in Chicago as well. Yeah, and Gordon, he's been great. He's, I mean, I learned so much from his videos that he puts out there.
Yeah.
Most of my C3PO is credit to him. I mean, the chroming process. That was something I had to learn. I watched a lot of his videos on how to chrome and how to get that effect. And it wasn't for him. It turned out amazing. I just love, the hydrochroming process. I did this guy here the same process.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's not. Some people ask me, is it, how much does it cost? Is it cost effective? I said the biggest thing is the learning curve. I bought lots of silver remover, when I did it, because I'd spray and I get these spots and I wasn't satisfied and I had to wipe it down again and start over. So yeah, it was definitely. I probably could have shipped it off to had it vacuum metallized for the price that I put into the equipment. But the nice thing is that now I have the ability, the skills and the ability if I need to fix it. I'm actually getting new legs here pretty soon that I got from Chris Bartlett. His 3PO legs, so as soon as they come in, I'm going to have to chrome those as well. The ones I have, I hired, at the time I was building him, that C3PO is a little bit different. It's not the ones that are on Thingiverse.
Okay.
I actually modeled the torso myself from the 3D scans, the Don Post scans that were out there. So
Yeah.
I think I sent you a picture. There's a 3D scan that I had of my body that I had done at the base, and I kind of tried to scale it to fit. And I probably could have scaled it just for a little bit of fluff for Thanksgiving and Christmas. But yeah, it's snug tight. But I took the scans, threw it into ZBrush, kind of did my best at trying to shape it to fit. Some of the other parts, I started out with a casted head from Jason Street, and then I went off to the head is, I think, the only thing that is from Jesse's files that's out there on Thingiverse.
Yeah.
The rest of it is it's kind of a hybrid mix of different parts. Those are the legs that I got from a guy, Boone. He's Sky Blue Props. I had him model some legs that articulated because there were no files out there at the time. And doing the legs with the Donco scans exceeded my ZBrush capabilities in making the mechanics of that work to articulate. So I commissioned the guy, Boone. He did it, and we put it out there for a while. The only issue that I have is the upper part of the thigh flares out a little bit too much, more than I'd prefer. Some say that's good, because a 1970-year-old Anthony Daniels was, any models or things that are made, it's made for his size. Needless to say, I'm not that skinny.
Nobody's that skinny.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I could pull off C3PO. I've got to say, I could probably fit in a really big R2D2. But so, question for the both of you then: outside of Star Wars and building, what takes up your other time, if you've got any time left, of course?
Well, for me, I'm a pilot. Have my own airplane.
Okay.
So that takes up a little bit of time and most of the money.
Yeah, not a cheap hobby.
No, it's not. But I've been flying since '93. Well, I got my pilot's license in '93. So yeah, I bought the plane in 2018, and it's a 1946 airplane. So
Oh wow. Yeah.
it's fun to play around with. That's my main other hobby.
Flying. Yeah.
I have lots of hobbies, but that's the main one.
And what about you, Tim?
This consumes me. I mean, yeah, between that and an
You married?
8-year-old and a 10-year-old,
Yeah.
it's tough. Hobby work, work life balance, hobby, because I still work during the day, and then I come home and feed the kids and come down to the basement. And sometimes I'm down here till 2 a.m. It's kind of the OCD in me. Once I start, it's hard to stop. Until I get to it. I have in my mind where I'm gonna try to get this done tonight. And next thing you know, I look at the watch and it's 2 a.m. and I'm like, okay, I need to go to bed because I got to get up at 6 or 7, in the morning. But it's a bit of that in all of us.
Cool. Question, I guess, looking more towards the future. Have you got anything? What cool projects are you working on at the moment? Have you got anything sort of planned for the future?
I got so many in my head right now. I'm definitely going to finish IG11. I definitely want to do him. I think I'm trying to step outside the box. I like to challenge myself with things I haven't done, or things that like I had mentioned to you earlier. One of the things I want to do is an Avatar bust display from the movie Avatar. Big bust. So I think that one's going to be the next big one that I'm going to tackle on is that. And then I really like Chris Bartlett's droid from Mandalorian. That one, if I can make that one, full size, I think I'm gonna go for that.
Yeah. So. What about you, Chris?
Well, the project I mentioned that I was working on this morning is a new book that's coming out soon. I think it's already been pushed back a couple times, but we're wrapping up illustrations on it this weekend. I don't know how much we can say about what it is yet.
Okay.
But it'll be coming soon.
Is it Star Wars related? Can we ask it?
It is, yeah. Yeah, it's related to Galaxy's Edge, to the park.
And is it one that I'll just jump out and buy as soon as it hits the shops?
Probably.
Yeah, okay. This
I
sounds
like to work on books that people don't want to buy. See what else is going on. Well, there's some giant news coming for me, but I can't talk about it quite yet.
Okay.
Hopefully midweek.
Oh.
So it's been signed and whatnot, but there'll be a reveal this week, I hope. So.
Okay. Oh wow. Okay. Well, watch your space, and yeah, if you need to post anything on the group with big news, then just fire away. It'd be fantastic to hear.
Okay. Yeah. There'll be a release coming soon. I was hoping that it'd be done this past week so that we could talk about it today, but
okay.
Yeah, very close.
We like secrets and intrigue. This is fantastic. We've got something to look forward to next week. If you can knock coronavirus off the top of the news headlines, that would be fantastic, Chris.
Yeah. I don't think it's that newsworthy, but
no, that'd be brilliant. Anyway, we're getting a little bit towards back end of time, but I'm going to have to finally let's jump back to Star Wars. I mean, I asked this question probably most of the guys that come on here, and I do get diplomatic answers. But what's your view of the current material? So, latest trilogy, Disney Plus, some of the future projects like Obi-Wan. Kind of what's the view from the room?
I'm loving it. I really enjoy what they're doing with stuff, and it's the property itself is just so rich and deep with content and the stories that they're able to tell now that they're not telling a core story and limited by that. Now the scope of what Star Wars is can really open up and do some crazy interesting things. So I'm super excited for what's coming.
Yeah.
And the stuff that they've already done. And
I've got to say, what I loved about The Mandalorian is everything else that we've seen has been keeping in the Star Wars genre. Whereas to do things in the Star Wars universe, it's a different genre, like spaghetti westerns or that works really well. And I hope we see a lot more of, stretching out the genres but keeping the universe. I think it becomes pretty authentic then, really.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's fun that the people working on Star Wars now are as big a fans as any of us.
Mm.
To see their take on things, even things that everybody doesn't agree with sometimes, I think it's amazing to see kind of that diversity and richness in it. And like I said, it opens it up for people that weren't into it before. I mean, you can watch The Mandalorian and not be a Star Wars fan and really enjoy it because it's a different take on things. So, like I said, I'm super excited for everything that's coming.
I was so interested. I mean, when JJ to The Force Awakens, it's kind of one side of the swingometer, which was keeping it, almost completely classic within the genre, and he got criticised for that. And then, the next one just went the complete other side, ripped all the books up, started afresh, massive criticism for that. So it's interesting to see how it kind of swings back and forth. But again, I think we've got to take it in context. We're grumpy 50-year-old men that are trying to relive our youth from when we were right. So.
Yeah, it's when you're trying to. I mean, what is Star Wars has like 99% knowledge in the world, and when you're trying to make everybody in the world happy, you just can't. There's gonna be somebody who's got a loud voice or thinks they have a loud voice and wants to complain, it's just so much fun for everybody else. And then like we're doing here, just the discussion and the sharing of ideas about things and kind of that shared experience with Star Wars. It connects people in a way that a lot of other stuff doesn't. So I think that's really important, and that's never going to change. If anything, it's going to get more so because now it's kids who grew up on the prequels and even on the newer stuff are having kids, and it's so multi-generational now. It's just part of culture. It's part of us. So
that multi aspect is, I think that's the neat thing is I can share this with my kid. It's something that we both enjoy and have in common. I can put on Star Wars and say, hey, you want to come downstairs and watch it? The old ones or the new ones, and he's down here with me in heartbeats.
Yeah, I think there is a criticism that's kind of a bit of a toxic culture around the social media side of it, but the other side of it is there's an amazing community of people that just kind of revel and enjoy it, and particularly, like you said, multi-generational, sharing it with your kids and whatever. I mean, what was your view on the new films, Tim?
Oh, I've enjoyed them. I think they did a fantastic job. I enjoyed, especially like Mandalorian. I mean, that just what they've done with that film it's amazing. I mean, every I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, coming out of Last Jedi, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Came out of cinema, thought, I really enjoyed that. It was good fun. And then about 2-3 weeks later, I had a grocery delivery from the local supermarket, and he popped in and he just looked into the shed. He was delivering. He put the groceries down, not spoken to him before, and he launched into a monologue about the Last Jedi. Well, so what do you think? And I said, oh my God, guys, it's a movie. It's entertainment. Sit back, chill out, and enjoy it.
One second, my battery's running low. 1 second.
Yeah, it's amazing that way. It came unplugged.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the battery came unplugged. Sorry.
I think we're pretty much wrapping up anyway now. So, but I mean, I guess firstly, huge thank you for joining us today, and I guess talking to me and talking to the guys. And then secondly, massive thanks to both of you. It's funny because individuals, I don't think you realise the inspiration and the drive that you give other people. When people see the Tauntaun Chris, for example, that it can just push them another step forward when they're stuck in the middle of a bloody build that isn't working or pieces aren't quite fitting together.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's why I think it's so important for people to share the stuff they're working on and to not hold anything too precious. I mean, the only way it all gets better is by sharing data back and forth. I mean, I dumped all the 3D stuff I did for my droid out to the club, just in the interest of making things better. And I mean, it's what you're doing. It's like people are taking those things and iterating on them and doing stuff that I never would have thought of. So I get really frustrated when I see people thinking their version of something is unique and overly precious.
Yeah.
Because I mean, we're all just playing in somebody else's sandbox, and not being willing to share and talk about your ideas only hurts the group.
I tell you, I mean, kudos to you and to a lot of these designers. Like a lot of stuff you're seeing behind me. These 3 builds here came from the other patron or group, Build It and They Will Come. He does, Kevin, Jason. I mean, there's so many of them out there that have these groups. There's a C3PO builders group, and I can build it, but it's guys like you and so many others that come up with the creation of design. It's beyond my skill set, which I hope to be someday.
Well, that's what drove me to do a 3D printed R2D2 was somebody telling me that you couldn't do it, and it wasn't in spec. And I think that I'm just doing chopper at the moment, and it's almost preempted up front to say, look, guys, I'm starting right from source material. For me, it's the fun of starting right from the beginning. Not. I think it's the challenge the biggest risk we've got as a community is being constrained by club specs, which is recognizing them and building on them, but not being constrained by them. So if you want to go back to source material and play, go for it. Go for it, because otherwise, what we end up doing is just narrowing our scopes as we go forward.
Right, and if we do that, we propagate the errors, and they never get fixed. And that was my frustration originally with the club, is that I felt like nobody was questioning anything anymore. And I had to come in and raise lots of questions. I mean, and thankfully I was in a position with at the time access to the real droids and a lot of reference and stuff that most people don't have. I mean, I was very privileged that way, but I had access and the ability to kind of push things in a way that I wanted or thought they should go, and just to become more open and refined. And I think that needs to continue. And I'm very proud of the stuff we did with the CSR, but it's a snapshot in time. It's not the end all be all. I mean, when I worked on the stuff for Disney, for the parks, there were further refinement to that. So, I mean, the droids at Disneyland and Disney World now and Galaxy's Edge are the most accurate things out there by far. But they're just an iteration on things. So,
well, the differences between every episode of Star Wars' differences. I was talking to Lee and Ollie about Oliver about when they did The Force Awakens, and I know you probably contributed as well, Chris, is that, it's weird because you're going from trying to design the perfect spec to actually lay down potentially a spec, and I was talking to Oliver about well, it's a bit CSR, a bit CSL, it kind of, we felt obliged because we were in that position to not use a standard club frame, but to design something specific to the movie. So it's
right. Well, and when they were doing that stuff too, it was right after we had started talking CSR, and it might have even been CSR at that point. It might have still been R2.0.
Yeah.
And do some stuff needed to change, but the club wasn't making parts for stuff at that point. So I shared with those guys for the film. I mean, what I had, 3D files and whatnot. And I know some of that got integrated, but it was a matter of like everything else in the movie industry. It's like you've got 5 minutes to get 2 hours worth of work done. So
I can do that.
Yeah. Tim's the only one I know who can actually do that.
Right. Anyway, I think we'll wrap it up there. I could have talked for hours with you guys, and I mean, hopefully at some point we will do. We'll drink beer and chat things for quite some time.
Yeah,
but
one of these times when we can actually travel between countries.
yeah, that would be good. Indeed, that's far better than beer, Tim. I've got to say, I'm jealous now. Yeah, I'm hoping Celebration this year will be on. I'll be making my way over to that American country that you all live in. Fingers crossed.
I think Emerald City Comic Con just got rescheduled, I think, for the weekend before Celebration.
Yeah.
Which I think is a good sign that at least those organizers are thinking things will be better by then. So,
well, it's whether it's going to turn out to be flu or whether it's going to turn out to be the end of humanity. We'll no doubt find out in the next 6 or 8 months.
Yeah, nothing else, maybe Celebration won't be as crowded.
Well, exactly. And at the moment, listen, we've got 6 months now of being self-isolating, 3D printing stuff, and making stuff, which is perfect.
Definitely, yeah. It's a maker's paradise right now.
I have gotten so much done in the last couple of days. It's wonderful.
Panic buying on filament now. Forget toilet paper. Everybody needs to get as much filament as possible.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Anyway, thank you again, guys. Have a great evening. Make sure that bottle of whiskey is finished by the end of it, and no doubt you'll be happy, man. I will speak to you soon. Thanks everybody for listening. As always, we'll make sure this is available in the group for people who have missed it. But fantastic. Thank you so much. Cheers, guys.
Thanks.